The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.
Music brings people together, transcending barriers of all kinds. And at this time of year, we like to do our part. So tonight, we sit down with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra's two top musical minds, Maestro Gustavo Gimeno and CEO Mark Williams. Then we'll tune into the angelic harmonies of the award-winning folk duet, Dala. It's Tuesday, December 20th, and that's this year's agenda, the Music Show edition. "100 years ago, a group of music lovers established what would soon come to be known as the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. And for a century, the TSO has been delighting audiences, first at Massey Hall and for the last 40 years at Roy Thomson Hall. The orchestra hired a dynamic new music director in 2020, just in time to see his first season canceled because of COVID. Then its chief executive officer unexpectedly left. It's all par for the course in the wild world of classical music. Here to tell us about their plans for the 100th anniversary season and how to get things back on track during a pandemic that still isn't over, we welcome Maestro Gustavo Gimeno and CEO Mark Williams. And it's great to have you two here in our studio.
Nice to be having us.
I want to take you back, Gustavo, 2.5 years. You've got this new job in a new country. You no doubt had big plans for the TSO, and it's almost over before it begins. And I wonder whether at any point in that you asked yourself, what the heck have I gotten myself into here?
Well, I thought this is really bad luck. You know, I was so much looking forward to have a complete, wonderful first season. I was visualizing already the first concert, the first program. It would be in the second half of the program would be the first symphony by Mahler. And I had already all, you know, I was visualizing everything and the emotions, and all of a sudden it was gone. So, well, we all know we were in a strange position all of a sudden, but we are now also happy to be where we are now.
And when you have to sit down and start planning out a program when there are no concerts, people cannot gather, you've got to do everything online, where do you even begin?
Well, and before programming all those concerts of the future, also we had engaged many artists for my first season, so to accept those plans are not going to take place, and to make new plans and what exactly, depending on the new regulations and the authorities, and we wouldn't know how long it would take. So we were actually making plan which didn't happen, and again another plan which didn't happen, etc., etc. So it was reinventing ourselves, sometimes a little depressing, because also as a musician, one thing is making plans, which is part of our lives, but in the end, the core of our lives is really sharing the stage, you know, sharing the stage and making music together, and that's what keeps us also together. So it was difficult for a while. So I keep on thinking nowadays how fortunate I feel where we are now. So because it's so recent, of course, all this.
You feel in some ways the first 2 years didn't even count?
It counted.
It did?
No, it counted. It didn't count in the music making. It counted in, well, before I started, we had our first crisis together. So we got to know each other very well, and we had many meetings, and we, not only personally, but also as an institution, I think that those difficulties made us also stronger and forces you to grow in a different direction and a different way than what you had envisioned and imagined. So I think we are, I worried a little bit because we didn't have our first season and our first concert, which is a wonderful feeling of coming together after an announcement, etc. So I worried that time would be away and we wouldn't have that moment. Actually, I feel we are having it now because it didn't happen back then, but we are more mature as a collective. So in the end, let's take it as it is, and we'll go from there. That's fine.
And we'll talk more about that as we go along. You are fairly new to your job. You just got this job this year, right?
I am.
From Cleveland.
I started in April, so I've been here about 8 months.
Why did you decide to leave? You had a big job in Cleveland with a world-renowned orchestra, and you left that for here. How come?
You know, one of the things that became very clear to me in the pandemic was that we needed really great leadership in the arts as we would rebuild. And when I got the call and I thought, great orchestra, Toronto Symphony Orchestra, Gustavo Gimeno, a music director and a conductor that I know quite well and have a great deal of respect for, an incredible city, a wonderful country. I mean, it all seemed very obvious to me that this would be the place, if offered, that I would want to be.
Well, you say it's obvious, and okay, I'm going to admit my bias here. Toronto's a better city than Cleveland. We got to admit that.
I would agree.
Okay, but the Cleveland Orchestra is considered, I mean, it's considered one of the world's great orchestras, maybe better than the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, right? Did you worry you were taking a step down?
No, absolutely not. And I think that the opportunity in Toronto is so great. I mean, the quality of the music making here, what Gustavo and the orchestra are doing together, I'm continually amazed by, and I'm really excited about telling that story in our community and making sure that more people in our community know the gem that we have here. You know, Gustavo was just saying that in a way it feels like the beginning is now. So I started in April, shortly after we could have the full orchestra back together without distance and a full audience.
And the full orchestra is how many?
It's 90 people.
90.
So 90 people, one conductor, a full audience. And that was sort of my first week here, really. So it felt in a way like we were all starting after the pandemic together. And I heard that orchestra, I'll never forget, it was Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony. And I started to fall in love. And I knew, I'm in the right place. These are my people, these are my musicians, this is my city.
You used to play. Do you still play?
You know, play is a very
term?
general term. I studied French horn, so I did play the horn, and actually I'm playing at the office holiday party on Fridays.
Okay, that's not quite what I had in mind, but somewhere along the way, I guess you made the decision that your future was not going to be as a musician, as a player, but
Yes.
rather in management and
Yes.
administration. Why'd you make that call?
I have a firm belief that if you have decided that your life will be on the stage, you have to believe that it's truly the only thing you can do. Not that it's the only skill that you have. You know, our musicians, Gustavo, these are incredibly well-educated, curious people. But there's something inside of you that says, I must be a musician. I must be a horn player. I must be a painter. I never had that. I love the art form. I couldn't imagine my life without it. But it became clear to me that my role was to support it, not to do it. And I'd like to think that the world is better for that.
I normally never ask people questions about their private lives, but you have been very open about the fact that you are the first Black CEO in the history of the Toronto Symphony and the first openly gay CEO of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. And I guess I want to know, is that important to you, to be that pioneer?
Well, no one sets out to be a pioneer, right? I mean, we set out to live our lives to find happiness, to find fulfillment, and ultimately to contribute. And so I'm very pleased that I can contribute to the artistic life, the musical life in our city in this way. And I hope that I can't hide my race, but I suppose I could hide my sexuality. But I hope that being open about these things and speaking about them, maybe that will inspire someone else to see that, well, you know, they could run a symphony orchestra or an arts organization or a corporation or whatnot. So, you know, in that way, I suppose one simultaneously a symbol, but we're also just, you know, we're just the people that we are.
Gotcha. Gustavo, take us back. For those people who haven't had a chance to get to know you yet, we should say you're originally from Spain.
Right.
Amsterdam is home, though. That's where you are based at the moment. You grew up in a musical home, right? Your dad was
Exactly.
a clarinetist?
Yeah.
And you think you took from him?
Well, actually, deciding when I hear conversations of other people about would you like to study music, for me wasn't an option. For me, the option was which instrument. It was for sure I was going to be into music, and my brother is also a musician. My father was a professional musician, and everything around, in daily life, everything had to do with music, listening to music, getting my dad being late after rehearsals at home, or he was teaching also at home. So music was part of our lives, so it was no option. I never had to ask myself, what do I want to do in life? It was obvious.
What was less obvious was which instrument. How did you decide on that?
Well, I also had I don't know why now, but as a kid, I had a strong connection with percussion. And I also studied piano later, but I was a horrible pianist. but with percussion, I found my way. I was quite good, I thought. And then, I don't know why I thought of percussion. Now, it feels like a different life. Like you have done it, but it's not really anymore part of my consciousness. So I'm not, but thanks to having played percussion and being part of an orchestra, I have learned so very much. So I'm very thankful I had this project, but well, that's past indeed.
Will we ever see you conduct a Toronto Symphony Orchestra concert and play in the percussion section at the same time?
I will ask for permission to the principal percussionist of the orchestra.
Well,
might be.
Is that possible?
That's possible. You never know.
Look,
but I have to check with the principal percussionist of the orchestra.
I can tell you, on behalf of all I subscribe to the TSO. On behalf of all subscribers, I would love to see that someday. Just putting you on notice. Okay. Most conductors I know, they were pianists, they were violinists. I don't know of any others that were percussionists originally. Is this unique?
I don't think so. I mean, there are a couple of famous conductors who play percussion. Ricardo Chailly, Pavo Jarvi, and some others. But like conductor Daniel Barenboim, conductor, pianist, a wonderful artist, used to say, indeed, in the past, getting to conducting was mainly pianists or maybe a violinist, but actually that's not anymore the way, now there are so many different trajects and paths which can bring you to conducting. So I understand that's the general thought, but probably not anymore. I mean, some people come from an opera house or from being a repetitor or playing in an orchestra. And I also know, it's like Pekka Salonen, famous composer, conductor who played French horn also. So anyway, that's probably there are now many, it's more obvious than ever. There are many ways to get to conducting.
Was there a eureka moment for you, an aha moment, where you thought, I'm not going to be a percussionist going forward. I am going to be the maestro. I'm going to be a conductor. I'm going to be in charge.
Yeah, I was assistant conductor of two great conductors and human beings, Claudio Abbado and Maris Janssons. And I got to work with them in the same year, and they both were very supportive of what I did. And the way they talked to me and they looked at me and they talked about my future, I realized that they believed in me probably more than I did. I needed someone to believe in me the way they did. And they talked about me and about conducting, like, this is what you have to do. This is it. And I realized when they talked to me in such a way, I thought, I remember at a certain point, I just felt different. I can't do exactly anymore what I used to do. I'm a different person. Something has changed inside, and I want to go further. That's it.
After Peter Ungen left, he was the previous Gustavo, the orchestra obviously searched far and wide for his replacement and landed on Gustavo, who had conducted with the TSO in the past. This was not your first time with the TSO. Can you tell us, from a management point of view, from a need to sell this orchestra to the world point of view,
yes,
why is he the right guy for this job right now?
No pressure, right? I mean, it all has to start on stage, right? We're dealing in an area where the difference between the Toronto Symphony Orchestra and the next best orchestra, we could say, is maybe infinitesimal, right? But ultimately, the quality of what happens on stage is of utmost importance, because I feel very strongly that an audience comes in and they know when they're in the presence of something of quality. And so for Gustavo and the orchestra, it's the quality of the music making, it's the connection, the chemistry, the passion that they have with each other, which gets translated into the audience. It's the intellect, it's the curiosity. You know, how do we think about new music? How do we reach out and bring new voices into the concert hall? That's something that Gustavo and the orchestra are working very hard on. You know, it's all of these things, and it's also a personality. As a face of the orchestra, have you hired a conductor who represents the orchestra in every way, in the way that you would want to see yourselves? And I think, you know, for your performance review, I think you're doing very well.
You actually have to do that, don't you?
No, I don't.
You don't have to performance review him?
No, I don't.
Technically, you're the boss, aren't you?
Actually, we are colleagues because the board hires the two of us.
Oh, okay.
And actually, I think that's a really wonderful arrangement because, you know, the art and the business have to work together, but if either one of them becomes dominant and, you know, the other is subordinate, I think that it sends an orchestra in the wrong direction. But with this structure, we have to work together, we have to compromise, and we equally have skin in the game for success. I think that makes good sense.
Let me ask you the same question. You could have gone, well, anywhere. I mean, you could have decided to be the maestro with any number of different symphony orchestras. Why the TSO?
I always have to think of the first rehearsal. Not only the first rehearsal I had with the orchestra, the first session. I mean, it was 10 o'clock in the morning at 11:15. I was in the break and I called a couple of people and I said, this is really great. This is really great. This orchestra, I really like them a lot. They play with culture, with refinement. They are curious, they are open-minded. You see in their eyes and in their playing, they want to also, they want to share, they are generous, but they want to get from you. And I felt in heaven, in a way. I really felt identified with their attitude. I mean, one might think that a conductor, and I want to inspire the people who are around me and in front of me, but they were inspiring me too. I mean, I was not telling them. I was, you know, I was just working on the music, but it was an incredible feeling of realizing this is wonderful, it's beautiful, there is potential for development, and we are just finding each other, and it felt like being in the right place in the right moment. And this happens very few times in life. I mean, you just have to see about how many positions conductors had in their lives, and maybe depends on the conductor, but maybe we are talking about 2, 3, 4 times that you are music director of an orchestra. Mm-hmm. So I felt immediately identified with their playing and with their attitude, and I love the city, and it was immediate, and I just felt the right. It's a family. It's the right partners, the right, and I don't make any sounds. You know, I need to connect with people who actually make sounds. They need to understand through my gestures, through my appearance, passion, verbal indications, with my attitude. They need to interpret all this and to translate it into playing, and then the result of all the individual forces coming together and having any concrete direction, whether you might like it more or less, but there is a clear definition of this is what we are presenting. And in that sense, you need the right partners next to you. Otherwise, it's impossible. There was a teacher of mine used to say, you know, sometimes music is or very easy or impossible. and I felt this was just easy because we communicate easily. And it happened already the first rehearsal that I felt a connection. Can you imagine now already after having done so many different parts of the repertoire? I think even before I'm on stage, I think they already know me, and therefore they prepare certain things in a certain way, and I think they know what to expect, but yet that puts also pressure on me because I also want to be a better conductor, be a better musician, and to take them even further, and to take us further, which is in the end, you know, what we are supposed to do. So it's a wonderful place where to be. I have just the right colleagues.
I want to show the folks what you do. Shall we? Sheldon, Mr. Director, let's roll it. Oh my gosh. I mean, you look like you're just having a scream up there. You look like you're having so much fun. I know you're working, but is it as joyous as it looks?
Yeah, in my life, work does not really exist. You know, it's my passion, my religion, my way of living. I just love it. It gives me so many things: music making, people, talented people. It gives me so very much.
It shows.
Yeah.
Okay, you said a moment ago about compromises, and I want to just sort of explore that a little bit here, because you're the guy who's ultimately responsible for putting bums in seats.
Yes.
And symphony orchestra audiences tend to be on the older as opposed to younger side. They tend to be, I'm not saying there's no young people who go, there's obviously young people who go. But they are also people who maybe fear COVID more than younger people do and are nervous about being in enclosed settings with large numbers of people. So, I'm guessing you want to do Beethoven and Mozart all the time, and he's probably trying to get some new and different voices in there.
I think you might be wrong.
Okay, well, this is what I want to explore, because compromise, right? You guys have to compromise on what you're going to be. How does it all work out?
Balance, maybe?
Balance.
Balance more than compromise.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that the assumption that after everything we have been through, that people want to come back into a concert hall just to hear the stuff that they already know, I don't find that to be true. I think that the opportunity right now is that we can offer something that feels vital, that feels new, that feels, frankly, worth getting out of your sweatpants and off of your sofa and coming to the hall to experience. So in that way, I think we're actually quite aligned that that what's most important is finding the balance of comfort food and adventure and exploration. I think that's what will get people, what is getting people back.
And sometimes, especially in the very beginning, I was amazed by the architecture in Toronto. You know, all buildings, new buildings, high ones, glass, bricks. And then I thought, but then I realized also that everyone here can tell a story, also background, cultures, multicultural, mixing, and new things happen. And that's, again, the result of the collective, you know. And I think we also, in our programming, we not only want to reflect Toronto, but I find it's a moment of history where not compromising, but integrating, getting backgrounds together, people together, different eras, different experiences, contrasts, relationships. I think that's the right thing to do now in Toronto. And actually, very often it happened to me that I got some friends or guests to concerts, and I was selling the concert to them. You know, there is this wonderful singer, or that wonderful piece by Debussy, La Mer, or whatever, or Daphne Chloe, and they came for it. And then we also we played a new composition, a premiere, new music, and actually at the end of the concert, you know what I love the most? That one piece. Mm-hmm. So one might call it challenging the audience. I don't know, challenging, but maybe introducing, inviting, and I think very often the reactions are also for us quite surprising, because it's not at all sometimes the ones who have, you know, prejudgments or are ourselves and not kids or not young people or not the people who just go to the audience.
And there's something very interesting, I think, that happens when you have a new piece, which is whether you are a seasoned symphony goer or this is your first time in the concert hall, you're on an even playing field. And that there's something about that experience, I think, that includes a lot more people than I've heard Beethoven 5 50 times and this is the way it goes, or that's not the way it goes. And so I think this moment requires balance and this open-hearted spirit of welcoming people in and making them feel included when they're there.
There is a reason, though, that Beethoven 5 or Beethoven 9 has been played for 200 years.
Of course,
because it's unbelievably magnificent.
Absolutely.
And I wonder, is it a tough, you know, as I say, I go, is it a tough sell to this is the wrong word, but sort of sneak in those Canadian composers or those composers who are 35 years old and are brand new and trying it now? Is that a tough sell with your audiences?
My experience here has been that the audience is incredibly open.
Curious.
They're very curious, and they're excited about music that comes from our time, and more importantly, from our space. We have a commissioning project for the centennial season, which we're in, 100 years, of these short commissions from composers around Toronto. And so they really reflect the city. They're from all kinds of backgrounds, genders, ages, whatnot. You know, one was on stage a couple of months ago with green hair, and they're writing beautiful music that reflects this time and this place. And I do think there is something about seeing that composition, classical composition, is not only people from Vienna from 200 years ago, but there are people who go to your coffee shop as well, right? They're your neighbors.
Yeah.
That this art is not, it's not a museum piece, it's living and it's breathing and it's being created right around us.
In our last minute, Gustavo, 100th anniversary this year. You're going to have a panic this year, aren't you? You're going to have, I mean, you got a big celebration ahead of you, right? Lots to roll
We
out.
are celebrating every day. We are always finding reasons to celebrate. There are new compositions and pieces we have never done together, and new combinations. And then we have in a few days the Messiah, which is a tradition here, and I never conducted before. Definitely in such a not practically the complete piece.
Tour
and touring, and we go to Carnegie Hall together, and we have a first tour together, Ottawa, Chicago, on Valentine's Day. We had a gala with old friend of the orchestra, Yo-Yo Ma, cellist Yo-Yo Ma playing with us. It was extremely inspiring. I also got to know Jeremy Dutcher, a singer. So many, so many elements and so many artists and compositions. So lot to celebrate, and it's wonderful to be here with the orchestra.
Well, happy anniversary, happy 100th anniversary to the Toronto Symphony. You got the right guy on the podium to celebrate. I want to thank you both for coming in today, and keep on keeping on, please.
Thank you.
Gustavo Gimeno, Mark Williams, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great pleasure.
They met at a high school band practice in Scarborough, realized that their sound really clicked, and decided to set up their own group. That was 20 years ago for this duo, who have made a lot of beautiful music over the ensuing 2 decades. They named their group Dala. Yes, there's a corny story behind that. Let's find out more from Sheila Carabine and Amanda Walther, the principals behind Dala. Welcome, you two.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. All right, let's start with the name. Hang on a second here. Amanda.
Yep.
Sheila. Where did Dala come from, I wonder?
You got it.
Yeah, I
Led
think we
Zeppelin
got
was
it.
taken. So
What was taken?
Led Zeppelin was
Led
taken.
Zeppelin was taken. Okay, got it. So you went with that.
We went with Dala. Yeah, we met. I was in grade 9. Amanda was grade 11, and we didn't really have a name for the first few years of playing together. And then we had to get a name to write on our demo CDs. And that was the second name. The first name was unmentionably bad. So
Do you want to hit me with it? What was it?
Glove Box. Because that's where we put the CD when we were driving.
Okay.
But yeah,
So not Glove Box, Dala instead.
Dala
Yes.
instead.
And it stuck.
It totally stuck.
It
Yeah.
stuck. Okay.
Yeah. And I will forever be the duh of Dallas.
Yes, so
You're the
I'm
duh,
thrilled about that.
And you're the la.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Can you take us back? Go ahead, Amanda, start us off here. Take us back to that band practice where the two of you met. And how did you find out that you clicked?
I was aware of Sheila for many years before that because our families were both part of each other's church folk groups. And so I had never formally met Sheila until that band practice. I introduced myself. I was really excited. I probably frightened her a little bit.
Yeah, Amanda had blue hair. So if you can picture
Oh,
16-year-old Amanda, blue hair, and I was this nerdy grade 9, Catholic school, buttoned all the way to the top. And then we started singing together, and it was really that instantaneous because our voices are quite different. And it's like together we have maybe half the range of Mariah Carey. but yeah, and then we have we grew up listening to the same music, like the Beatles, Cat Stevens, Krista Berg with all of his reverb, and the same sense of humor. And so it was written in the stars, I think.
Did you know about her before?
I did. I realized later that I had seen her at some sort of coffee house, at one, as you mentioned, or like the church folk groups. And Amanda was part of her father was this minstrel playing penny whistle, and she was one of the children playing penny whistle with him.
Okay.
So I think I was impacted by that. Haunts my dreams to this day.
We should get into. Most people who come onto this set and tell us their stories have something musical in their background, right? They come from very musical families. I presume this is the case here.
Yes.
Yes?
So my whole childhood was my dad playing guitar and singing, and music was a feature in all of my childhood memories. There was always a soundtrack, and even looking at old. Before the age of cell phones, I guess my parents would borrow the neighbor's camcorder every few years, and we had one tape of our childhood, and it would kind of cut, and suddenly we'd be 2 years older, but there would always be music in the background of every scene. And I think you had a similar experience.
It's just how we communicate in my family.
Yeah.
You know, after every meal together, someone would break out a guitar and we'd just start singing.
Amanda's family is next level. I went to a few Christmas parties of theirs, and they all kind of look like versions of Amanda. I joked, I was like, you're like Russian dolls. And they all can sing in perfect harmony. So I was kind of initiated into the family, and
And you took guitar lessons as a kid?
I didn't. I learned. My brothers both played guitar, and I kind of picked up. I did piano lessons, so that was kind of my formative kind of training. And then I played trumpet in the high school band, and
I played bass clarinet.
yeah.
You played bass clarinet?
I sure did.
You're a long way from bass clarinet these days.
Yes.
Did you never take guitar lessons or piano or any of that stuff?
My dad played guitar, and my eldest brother is the musician of the family, to put it lightly. He played every other instrument. So I kind of avoided learning an instrument for a really long time. But it was with Sheila. Sheila started playing guitar, and through our friendship and writing songs together that I picked up the guitar at age 20 and started writing on it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. I think before we go any further, we really need to hear you do what you do.
Sure.
Okay? So, this first piece you're going to play is called Oh Darling, Don't You Know? Do you want to give us just sort of what was the inspiration or what was the background to this?
Well, it was written, I was on a trip in Prince Edward County, which is in the height of its kind of summer beauty, and it came to me very quickly. The lyrics came very quickly, and there are a few images in the song that were exactly from an experience I'd had. Somebody left me a poem on a table in the morning, Mary Oliver.
Props to Mary.
Props to Mary, and like flowers from the garden on the table. And I thought these are kind of these still life images that kind of capture this moment in my life. And then when I sang it with Amanda, and the harmonies really kind of brought it to its full life. So.
And which instrument on this one?
We're gonna play the guitar.
Play that guitar. And it's not your normal guitar.
It's a lefty.
You're a southpaw.
Southpaw.
Yeah, I
And
noticed that.
I'm not actually a southpaw, just for guitar purposes.
You write with your right hand.
Right with my right hand.
But you play like Paul McCartney.
Because Sir Paul and I, that's the long game I'm playing. Trying to get to Paul.
Well, he's 80 now. You got a ways to go. Okay, here they are.
All right.
Dala.
Oh, darling, don't you know I have walked with you a while. I have seen what makes you worried. I have seen what makes you smile. And when it's hard to count your blessings, don't forget the world counts you. And you'll be fine, and you'll be home, and you'll be true. When the grass is getting high and the light is getting low, leave a poem on the table, leave a flower in a bowl. Keep your eyes on the horizon, and I'll be looking back at you. And you'll be fine, you'll be home, and you'll be true. Oh, darling, don't you know I have walked with you a while. I have seen what makes you worried. I have seen what makes you smile. And when it's hard to count your blessings, don't forget the world counts you. And you'll be fine, you'll be home, and you'll be true. can hear the birds, I can hear the breeze, I can hear my heart finally. I wanna hear you sing every sunny day, and when the clouds roll in, I wanna hear you say, oh darling, don't you know I have walked with you a while. I have seen what makes you worried, I have seen what makes you smile. And when it's hard to count your blessings, don't forget the world counts you. And you'll be fine, and you'll be home, and you'll be true. And you'll be fine, and you'll be home, and you'll be true.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Do you know how, well, yes, of course you know. But you two
Go
are
on.
like, you are perfectly synced, right? You're perfectly in sync, not just harmoniously, but I mean, there's not a millimeter of space between when you say it and when you say, you know what I mean?
I think we breathe together. We were trying to analyze it.
That
And
is
we
re-
can read each other's minds.
Yeah,
so.
Very troubling.
Okay, now I'm going to ask a real nasty question here. I see the way you, I mean, the way you two look at each other, you are just in the zone. And I want to know if you're faking it, if that's just showbiz, or if, Amanda, is that just showbiz, or do you, like, are you just, because you've sung that song together hundreds of times.
Yeah, no, it's real. We deeply love each other, and we're extremely close friends. And I think the music, in some ways, is born out of our friendship and our closeness, and so those things are very much connected. So when we sing together, I mean, it's so joyful. It feels like everything's right in the world, and yeah, it just feels like we're connected.
I mean, I see that. It's in your face. I mean,
Yeah.
the way that it just, now you always sing the high part?
Usually, it depends on the song. Sometimes we'll move around a little bit when the harmony calls for it.
Yeah.
The song is in charge, really.
Yeah.
The song is in charge. Now, did you write words and music for that one? Do you write songs as well?
Oh, Amanda's a phenomenal
You
writer.
do write, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cliched question.
Yeah.
Words come first, music comes first? Which way does it go?
They come kind of at the same time.
They do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we went to the Songwriter Hall of Fame one year, and one of my all-time favorite quotes by the great Leonard Cohen, when he said, well, let me just go out into the Leonard Cohen register, subterranean. But he said, if I knew where the good songs came from, I'd go there more often. And so there's some element of, you don't know why it happens, when it happens, but you have to strike, and kind of when you're moved and called to write it, it just happens. And many days it doesn't. I'm not a very prolific writer by any means. Like especially in the last couple of years, I've maybe written 2 songs, whereas Amanda has had this like outpouring of songwriting
Yes,
recently.
So many.
Now, what happens when you write a song that you think is absolutely a killer, and you think it's a 10 out of 10, it hits every note, and you sing it for her, and she goes, yeah.
And I go full Simon Cowell. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, how do you resolve that?
I think a lot of our songwriting together as Dala is exactly the song that makes us both vibrate the same. And so if there's a song that doesn't resonate in our universe, then it goes in the back pocket for something else another time. But the joy of us working together and writing together is that we both feel as excited to sing the words together.
and I think we have similar tastes.
Yeah,
like,
we do.
When we're driving in the car, there's not a moment where Amanda puts on a song and I think, like, I don't even know this person. It's we generally like the same things. So when it's been if I'm really excited about something and I play it for Amanda. But that's also a great test, playing it for an audience member or playing a song live. Somehow you become your sharpest critic, because you're almost imagining yourself hearing it through their ears. You're holding yourself to this much higher standard maybe than if you were playing it alone in your bedroom. So I feel like Amanda is like the audience of all my actions and all my songs.
But I'm not finished looking for trouble here. So,
Okay.
You must
You want the
fight.
dirt.
I do. You must fight about something. I mean, there are, look, the Beatles all like the same kind of music, and they broke up eventually. So,
we all watched Get Back.
yes. Maybe not all 12 hours of it or whatever it was.
That was a lot of cigarettes, I'm just saying.
But what do you not fight over anything?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I think that's the part of
What do you fight over?
Where to eat.
We have different taste in partners.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've been together performing for 20 years.
Right.
And so as soon as there's disharmony, I actually feel physically uncomfortable. I'm someone who doesn't like conflict, and we head straight into any tension as soon as we feel it, because it just doesn't feel right to not resolve things. But we're very accepting of our differences. I think that's part of it, is that there's space in our friendship for us to have different views or different opinions, different thoughts and feelings on things. And we love and accept each other in that context.
And in the last few years, too, I think we both explored different kind of like musical projects outside of Dala, which has been really enriching. So then it's just made this experience, we're so much more grateful for it because we come back to it and it's not just a given, it's something we look forward to. And there was a time where we were touring really intensively, and it was getting to the point where maybe there wasn't as much joy. It was becoming more of, I wouldn't say a job, but it was hard to hear the music and what we were doing. And I think just by virtue of having not been able to tour at all really in the last couple of years, now when we perform, it just feels, we're so lucky.
Well, okay, as long as we're on the issue of the business of what you do, this is going to sound like a strange question. Can you make a living doing what you're doing?
You can make a modest living.
A modest living.
But you do have to be away a lot. So that's the one caveat in being a folk singer, is you have to bring your music to other folks. So you have to be on the road.
I mean, you can do, sorry.
No, do you have another job?
I don't. I'm a full-time songwriter and musician and artist,
Okay, but you do have another job.
It's funny you should mention it, Mr. Paikin.
Well, I mean, the reason I know who you are is that you work in the building.
I do. I work upstairs.
You work for TVO.
I do.
Now, do you have to do that because that's how? I mean, you need a second job to make a living.
I've found that. Yeah, I think it also just complements the two sides of my personality. I think I like having art as an outlet on one hand, and I also like routine and I don't know, I found, I mean, I love working. I've just started here recently, and I found that it satisfies maybe the more type A side of me. And actually, in the last couple of years, like I went back to school, and I found that was a great kind of creative outlet as well in different ways. Just being exposed to different types of literature, and so I like a good challenge, and so I feel like having a 9-to-5 is great in that way. And then art just feels like, wow, I feel like I'm playing hooky when I
But
perform.
You do wonder about the economics of being of trying to make a living as a singer in Canada.
Yeah.
And I've obviously talked to lots of people over the years who cannot do it. They need a second job in order to pay the bills.
Yeah, it's very challenging.
Or they need a partner at home who also is kind of supplementing the general household income, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you, like, I'm not going to be so crass. Well, I would be normally so crass, but I won't be here. So crass as to say how much money you actually can make, either touring or selling albums or whatever it is you do. I mean, can you make a living just doing that if you were on your own?
You can, but again, it's very difficult, and you have to have luck on your side. You have to work super hard, and you have to be on the road all the time.
And you'd probably be renting a home,
Yeah,
generally.
you
You'd be renting a space.
Yeah, it's hard. All the things that people often like to be able to do, like purchase a home and have a family, are extra challenging with what this type of life requires.
So when you say on the road all the time, 52 weeks a year, you'd be on the road how many weeks a year?
We used to, when we were on the road, travel and show days together would be about 200 days of the year.
200 days out of 365.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
That is a lot.
mileage
Yes.
in the Dalamobile.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
And you just, I presume you drive
We
yourself
would drive
to...
as much as we could, and then, I mean, we played a lot in the U.S., so we would fly to different locations there, which was great. I mean, our geography improved majorly.
Yes.
I loved that aspect of it. I loved the travel. But we did get to a point where I think we had to conscientiously make a decision of, Amanda has a family, and she said, I want to have a family, and really, there's only so many hours in the day, and I'm only one person, and I can't teleport yet. So, so that was a decision that we kind of made together, and that gave me the opportunity to go back to school. So initially, I have to be honest, I kind of thought, well, what am I going to do with all these weeks of the year when I had previously been touring? It was so much a part of my identity. And then it became an incredible, it's opened so many other doors in myself that I didn't realize were there, and kind of piqued my curiosity for other subjects, which has only inspired new songs. So, yeah.
I want to ask you about one of our country's greatest, who's in his 80s now and still performing, and maybe you two will be too, I hope so. You performed at a Gordon Lightfoot tribute concert at Mariposa's Folk Festival in Aurelia. Who was in the front row watching?
Mr. Lightfoot.
He was there. He was there. Okay, tell us the story. You're singing I presume, some of his songs?
Yeah, we sang If You Could Read My Mind in front of him and this beautiful audience. It was such an incredible weekend at Mariposa this summer. To be honest, it wasn't our first time singing in front of him. We've had the privilege a handful of times in our career to sing his own music for him at different Gordon Lightfoot tribute shows. But this was extra special, and he greeted us after we'd finished the song with a handshake. We got to meet him and say thank you. It was just a very moving moment for us.
Do you watch him when you're singing, watching you?
I try not to.
Yeah. Try not to. Would you want to know how he's reacting to the way you're interpreting his songs?
I watched him watch other performers. That felt a little, I think I would have probably forgotten the lyrics if I had looked over while we were singing, unless he was just mouthing them to us. But watching him watch other people was just, it was interesting, because you think of, well, he wrote this from such a specific point in his own biography of his life, and other people bring their own flair to it, which is such a testament to a great song, if it can be revisited and reinterpreted and still convey real feeling. Like the feeling carries through despite, you know, who's singing it at what time in history. So, and as Amanda said, like this year at Mariposa was just phenomenal, because it was, you're up in Aurelia in Tudhope Park, on the banks of Lake Couchiching. I feel like I'm going to start singing a Gordon Lightfoot song. And we hadn't been in person at Mariposa for about 2 years. It had been an online festival. You know, festivals did what they could, but it's just not the same.
It's not the same. No.
So this was, you know, kids running around in tie-dye, and you know, there's bubbles in the air and wizards, and and it was magic.
Have you ever played on the big lake they call Kichigumi?
No, not yet.
Not yet. It's waiting for you. It's waiting. I can't imagine you weren't looking at him, though, at all while you were performing, because you've got to be dying to know, geez, I wonder how he thinks we're doing.
Oh, I'm very aware of him. He was to the right of us, and I was definitely aware that he was watching us. But it's true. If
we look at each other more, just to ground each other.
Just to make sure we don't lose track.
Globe and Mail liked it.
They did.
Globe and Mail liked it. What did they say? It was one of the hits of the year, right? Your performance.
They did. Yes.
Yeah, it was one of the big hits of the year. Okay. This is like our best day here. So I think this calls for a song that might be called Best Day. Would you favor us with a tune, please, you two?
Maestro, my instrument.
Ukulele for this one.
Yep.
Here's Dala.
When you grow up, you're gonna be more than you ever dreamed of. And if you get lost, lead the parade, and then you'll never be afraid. Just feel the sun on your skin. You are as free as the wind, 'cause every day is the best day of your life. When I grow up, I'm gonna be more than I ever dreamed of. And if I get lost, I'll lead the parade, and then I'll never be afraid. I feel the sun on my skin. I am as free as the wind, 'cause every day is the best day. Just feel the sun on your skin. You are as free as the wind, 'cause every day is the best day of your life.
Oh my God, you two are so talented, it's disgusting. That's just phenomenal.
Thank you.
It's just phenomenal. Okay, we got a few minutes left here, and first of all, we should talk about whether you got any gigs coming up. You got any gigs coming up?
Yeah, we'll be. What are we doing?
We are.
What are we doing tomorrow?
Yeah, what are we doing tomorrow? We're during the holiday season. In the last couple of years, we've had the chance to tour with John McDermott. So we're going to be playing a few shows with him in Toronto and then in St. Catharines as well to round out the year. And then come the new year, it's...
Oh yeah, we'll be in Calgary. We love traveling to Calgary. It's got such a great folk community there, and we're returning there in February this year.
And do they fly you out there?
Yeah, we fly out.
They do.
They have so many amazing folk clubs. The communities are amazing.
Yeah.
That's a long way to go.
Yeah,
It is.
I love that trip.
And how many shows will you do in Calgary?
I think we're just one that weekend, maybe two.
Yeah.
But
That's very rock and roll. In and
Yeah.
out, one show.
Totes my goats, yeah. That's a long way. Okay. You know what last week was, eh? It was a huge date on the musical calendar. Yeah, you know where I'm going already. He knows where I'm going. It was Mr. Sinatra's birthday, okay? Mr. Sinatra would have been 107. And I gather that not only do you two do this music quite beautifully, but you like Frank.
We adore Frank Sinatra.
Now, how is that possible? You're both far too young to adore Frank Sinatra. So
Oh, my
how did that
goodness.
happen?
How could it not happen?
Hey, there, that's the right answer.
Old Blue Eyes.
Actually, the first time I ever sang in front of people other than my family members was in high school. They started a stage band and they were looking for a singer, and I was the one and only person to audition for the part.
So you got it.
So I got it automatically, and the first song I sang was "I've Got You Under My Skin." So I mean, obviously, Frank's the only one who's ever done it. But it's, you know, jazz and those classic American songbook style songs are at the heart, definitely, deep in my heart, songs that I love so much. And we used to always throw on Frank Sinatra when we would go on our road trips and when we were off to a gig.
And he just, there's something about his delivery also just makes me laugh, because some of it is just so shooting from the hip, like, I saw a man, he danced with his wife. You're like, is he drunk?
That would be in Chicago.
That would be in Chicago.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
I can't thank you two enough for you coming some distance to be here, you coming 5 floors to be here, and it was just great.
Thank you
Keep
for
on
having
keeping
us.
on. You two are so talented, and it's really a joy to hear you sing in this studio where we normally talk far too much death and destruction and not enough beauty. And that was beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Amanda Walther, Sheila Carabine, Dala. Awesome.
Thank you.
And that is the agenda for Tuesday, December 20th, our final program of 2022. Beginning tomorrow, we'll give way to some timely holiday programming on TVO, including a special sweets edition of Victorian Bakers, an exploration of Great Lakes wildlife, and some encounters with stately British manners and the royal family in the 20th century. I'm Steve Paikin. Thanks for watching TVO, for joining us online at tvo.org, and for connecting with us on all our social platforms. Hope you get a bit of a break over the next while and that the holiday season is rewarding for you and yours. And we'll see you again in 2023.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.
The Agenda is always on. To catch up on conversations from this week or any week, visit our website, tvo.org/theagenda, or our YouTube page at youtube.com/theagenda. It's all there for whenever you want to watch.